So what are you guys thinking? Tell me what you think about the absolute delusion of Juliette surrendering just to buy Shirley a few extra minutes to get down to the bottom and warn everybody. And of course, they're still going to try to go on with the pinching off of the safeguard pipe. But before we go any further, quick spoiler warning so we don't ruin anything else about the episode. So 3, 2, 1, we're in spoiler territory now. I will say in this week's episode that if one thing was proven is that Silo 1 is not some all-knowing god. They are starting to seem more and more as we get to know them like panicked elites playing with drones and their algorithms and their other little toys. But it seems like things are starting to crack a little bit. But with only 2 episodes left, the rebellion just lost their leader to a jail cell. And now Juliette is going to be trusting her entire revolution on a game of underground cell phone. And if by some chance Mechanical can't cap off that safeguard pipe in time, then we all know what the result of that's going to be. Silo 18 is going to be a massive grade. So as we saw the power structure starting to shift towards the end of last season and rolling into this season, we get a somewhat shocking reveal from Bernard being really remorseful and telling us about how he's sorry for all the things that he's done to the people of the silo and all the terrible things that he had to do because he thought it was virtuous. And this is basically him giving us his reason why he's helping out with everything. And he wants them to cap off the safeguard pipe because he wants to force everything into a negotiation with Silo 1. Because if they could cap that off, they can't just kill him anytime they want to. So it will force them to negotiate. At least he thinks so. Because I'm pretty sure they probably have other tricks up their sleeve as well, but maybe he's right. But speaking of capping off the pipe, we had to know that things were going a little bit too smooth in this episode because we see in this episode after Bernard and Juliette draw a map of the silos that she realizes that the silo's geography is rotated. And what I mean by that is silo 17 sits one way, 18 sits one way, and so on and so on. But the reason this is important is because Shirley and her crew are aiming for the wrong panel when they're going to cut off the safeguard. So what does she do? Of course, she immediately rushes up to go warn Shirley, and she does catch Shirley in time. But on the way up to Judicial, we get a message from Sandy over the radio, warning them basically that this is a trap. And this is the moment where Juliette sends Shirley back down to go warn everybody, and she goes up to go basically sacrifice herself in a sense, just to give them extra time. Now, I think this was a bad play. What do you guys think? The reason I say that is because is this really the time for a tactical sacrifice? Especially one that could potentially leave the entire rebellion exposed? I don't know. Tell me what you guys think about that. Meanwhile, let's quickly talk about this disintegrating marriage between Robert Sims and Camille. So we see that Camille has literally imprisoned her husband in seclusion. And I personally think that she is playing a very dangerous game of trying to appease the algorithm. And I assume this is all to protect her kid because she was talking about him drinking the water and forgetting all of this mess between them two and them just starting over. And it's all bullshit because I'm still trying to figure out, and you guys help me if you know, if everybody gets erased, and I believe somebody mentioned this in the comments last week, if everybody gets their mind erased, then who reprograms everybody? So there has to be somebody that doesn't get erased. So there has to be a safe water supply somewhere. Tell me what you guys think about that in the comments. But going back to the algorithm, here's the kicker and everything. Last week, the algorithm told Camille that Kennedy and Lucas were killed. This week, I don't know if she caught it or not, but the algorithm clearly contradicted itself when it said that now it can't find the bodies of Kennedy and Lucas. So I can't remember if she caught it or not. I don't think she did. But the algorithm basically told Camille, hey, we have active surveillance outside of the silo, so we can also see the shit that happens out here. And this is going to bring me to some questions in a minute because I think I have some questions for you all. But before we get to that, remember when Camille was interrogating Robert Sims and he just seems incredibly unbothered by this whole water supply thing and the vitamin D plus being in the water. Maybe he's just putting on an act, but in my opinion, he just seems a little bit unfazed and maybe there isn't anything in the water supply. Maybe they found a way to nip that in the bud earlier. He has been working in the shadows a lot longer than maybe we think he has been. So I'm not willing to bet, but it is possible that the reason that he's kind of fine with sitting in there, especially before Juliette got in there, because I think that kind of got a rise out of him. But the reason that he was comfortable sitting in there is because maybe the water supply isn't contaminated. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? The 2049 timeline this week is where all the biggest lore drops, in my opinion, were dropped. We finally get a chance to see Daniel's mega drill. And we also learned this sinister reality of the Seeds project. And we all know what the Seeds are. At least we do. They don't. And if you guys don't know, we are the Seeds, the people, because they're going to put us in the ground. The Seeds project. But Per Stenson tells us that he's building these silos because an enemy nation has stolen some of his technology and developed invisible nano weapons that can destroy you from the inside out. And to that, I say bullshit, because Per Stenson orchestrated that DC bombing thing himself. They also admitted while they were sitting at this dinner table that they used Charlotte and her crew basically as bait to fly into this cloud just so they could nuke Iran. Well, not nuke Iran, but nuke the facility where this nanotech was being developed in Iran. And they're also pitching this Doomsday shelter as, just some social experiment. Maybe it's something like Big Brother. We're going to put a few people underground. We're going to pay them a few $100,000 a year. And we're just going to see if it works, just in case. Yeah. Just in case. But if you weren't paying attention, you also may have missed one of the most damning clues in the episode. And that is when Senator Thurman herself recruits Charlotte to be a drone pilot or a drone operator. And I know there was some heavy debate last week in the comments over whether or not that was a drone, whether or not there were nanobites in the air. I think maybe it was, we know that it was drones now, because we saw that Lucas got shot. So there was definitely something out there firing bullets. I actually do have a question about the air, because the air doesn't seem to be as dangerous, does it? Because like Lucas pointed out to us, if there was something in the air, shouldn't he be dead already? Because it would have got inside his suit after he got shot. So it makes me wonder, is the air outside really poison? At least if it's still poison or not. I don't know. I'm starting to question that now, because it's starting to seem as though maybe the outside air is clean and clear and they're almost maybe being trapped underground for some reason. I don't know. What do you guys think? But it did confirm that the buzzing noise that we heard last week was a drone being flown outside of Silo 17 that's carrying obviously armed weapons, and it shot Lucas. Well, it shot at both Lucas and Kennedy, but Lucas actually got hit. And outside of that, some of the other things that happened in the episode real quick, we meet Solo again, aka Jimmy. We find his mother's body. We learn the story behind that they sacrificed themselves for the silo for him. We learn how to actually cut off the safeguard pipe. Somebody basically had to sacrifice themselves in order to do it, because they had to cut the pipe and weld it shut. So they made a noble sacrifice to try to save everybody in Silo 17. But I'm not going to say this confirms it, but it does make you think a little bit about the toxic air outside. Is it really ambient fallout from an apocalypse? Or is it a weaponized gas actively deployed by Silo 1 just to kill anybody who attempts to or does step outside? Now, the episode ends basically setting everything up for the final 2 hours of the season. It's a classic tension building sequence. That's basically what this entire episode was, but the ending was definitely your classic tension building leading into something bigger. We have Shirley sprinting back down to Martha, Bernard, and Knox to let them know that, Juliette got captured and she sacrificed herself, and we still basically have to go get this plan in action. And then meanwhile, we see Juliette tossed into the exact same cell as Robert Sims, and he's a bit shocked by this moment, like I mentioned earlier. But I don't just think this episode, at least, maybe next episode will be, but this wasn't just some cliffhanger. I think this was purposely set up like this to be a tension builder. Everything is coming to this big boiling point, it seems, on both timelines. With the memory erasing drugs supposedly flowing through the water in the down deep, and with Juliette and Sims trapped together now, the clock is kind of ticking, and they have zero communication, at least it seems, with Mechanical, with Solo and Kennedy and Lucas and the kids over in Silo 17. They're basically on an island alone. And if Shirley by some chance fails to cap off the safeguard pipe, then I doubt Shirley's going to be the one to do it, especially since she's pregnant. I doubt she's going to be in that situation to have to sacrifice herself. I think it's going to be somebody else. So pay attention to that as well, because we clearly saw that Solo's parents had to sacrifice themselves in order to cap it off. And yes, they came up with a way to potentially not let any gas out, but we don't know that it's going to work that way. So I am looking for a potential big death in the last couple of episodes of this season. So with Juliette and Sims not having any more physical advantages, it seems, they are completely relying on everybody that they basically left behind to spring into action and make everything happen. And the way it's seeming, they're only going to get one chance at this. I mean, and I guess that's kind of obvious because it's obvious that the algorithm, at least to a degree, told Camille how to shut down the safeguard. So it still makes me wonder if Camille is going to be a part of this plan to shut down the safeguard herself at some point. I know she wants to save her son. If by some chance the vitamin D plus isn't in the water, wouldn't Silo 1 go to their backup plan to safeguard? So with that knowledge that she may have now in her pocket and everybody else cut off, maybe she's the one who springs into action and finally comes back to the light and helps out. I don't know. Just one of my theories I'm throwing out there. You guys let me know what you think about that. And tell me yours as well. And what do you guys think about Daniel flying off with Helen in the helicopter, kissing? I actually think it's a play. I don't know. Daniel has been really interesting these last few episodes, but the one thing that we know is true is the connection that he has to his sister. And I just don't think that he would leave his sister in the hands of Stenson and Senator Thurman. I just don't think he would do it. I think maybe he made some type of deal to leave with Helen, to maybe keep her from spilling the beans or anything like that, because we know she's erratic and she probably doesn't care about an NDA. She's probably willing to go to jail. But I think it's a play for him to either bring her back in or to keep her quiet. Maybe I'm wrong, but you guys let me know what you think about that down in the comments as well. And the only other thing I want to throw out there is because we do see in the earlier trailers that Helen and Daniel are going to be happily walking inside the silo at some point, probably in these next 2 episodes. So with that knowledge, do you think that they could become some of the original test subjects? Because we know, like I stated earlier, they're going to be running this thing in the beginning like a social experiment of sorts. They basically told us that straight up. So are Helen and Daniel going to be some of the original people in there? Are they going to get their minds wiped? And that's why they don't seem so bothered to be walking inside the silo. Because Daniel, based off that clip, and I'll try to find a picture for it, based off how he looks in that clip, seems a bit happier than he is currently. Looks a little bit less stressed. But you guys let me know what you think about that. And the only other thing I have before we get out of here is something that we've known for a while, is that the founders are the people that are going to be the ones releasing this gray goo. We know it. They're the bad guys to a degree. I still think there's somebody else at play, but these are the bad people. And looking ahead to episodes 9 and 10, I want to know you guys' boldest predictions for the next couple of episodes. Make sure you leave those down in the comments. And let me know who you definitely think is not surviving this season. And if you want to continue surviving the Down Deep, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and keep coming back for more. You can also find me across all social media platforms. And until next week, I thank you all for coming. Make sure your water supply is clean, and I will see you in the next one.